the late hours of a Tuesday, Rhys had finished the Glamour and struggled to sleep after. The thoughts and feelings circling his mind, a carousel of ideas. Sleep was lost. Tomorrow, after a rock climbing session, leaving with a scraped knuckle and not much to show for the effort, he made it back home. The first glimmer of the Cardiff night time was coming through the windows of Rhys's apartment, dazzling his astigmatic eyes. The light shaping into a collage of yellows, black and blues, cars blurring along the road occasionally. The night was still and cool, no real sign of the winter to come. Rhys couldn't stop thinking about the glamour. It was rather glamorous itself, a cloud looming over, pulling him back in. So he sat down while making a dinner, or tea, whatever floats your boat, of salmon, swede, broccoli, potato and asparagus to write his introduction. The first introduction to the Rhys's Writing YouTube channel. There it is. The scrape. The scraped knuckle. So let's talk about The Glamour by Christopher Priest. I shall get it from my bookshelf. Oh, what a surprise. It's in the middle, in between the old pumpkins. This is a reissued version of the first. I don't know what the first edition is. I've seen a few. There was a really cool one, which is what I've used for the thumbnail. It had like just a woman looking all weird and like all glimmery. That one looks pretty cool. I don't know if that's the first print. And then there's one where they look, there's like a man and a woman looking like they're in a freaking bath or like a bathroom that's all steamy and stuff. And a mirror. That one's weird. But yes, The Glamour. Let's have a look at the blurb. Are you sitting tightly? Then I shall be. Are you sitting tightly? Is it tightly?
Now, are you sitting comfortably?
It's comfortably, not tightly.
Then we'll begin.
Anyway, are you sitting comfortably? Then I'll begin. Then we'll begin. All Richard Gray wanted was to recover, to return to normal. For 4 long, painful months, he had been convalescing after the horrifying injuries that he sustained when a car bomb exploded near him. He could remember the years he spent as a cameraman, covering stories all over the world, and he could remember taking a break from his career, but there was a profound blankness where his memory of the weeks before the explosion should have been. It was as if his life had been re-edited and part of it erased. But then Susan Cooley, I think she's a Cooley, Cooley, it's spelled Kewley. What else could it be? But then Susan Cooley came to visit him, and she spoke of those weeks, and what Richard wanted most was a glimpse of what that time had held for the two of them. But the glimpses he is afforded take him into a strange and terrible twilight world, a world of apparent madness, the world of the glamour. Christopher Priest's rich and subtle narrative is mesmerizing and profoundly moving, as compelling and as deceptive as a Hitchcock film. Compelling and haunting, says Publisher Weekly. Well, there you go. The Glamour. So, I really enjoyed it. I should pick that back up and put it on my actual bookshelf. I'll put it here. It's right behind me. Probably can't see it. So, yes, I really enjoyed The Glamour. Trigger warnings, though. There's a lot of talk about abuse, paranoia, trauma, a lot of that. It's all really well done, of course, but if you are susceptible to certain things like that, then it's going to be a tough read. And even like I sort of struggled with some of the scenes, as like, recently going through a breakup, that some of the things were rather quite close to home with all the sort of toxicity as System of a Down would say. Anyway, the book itself was really good, and I really want to read more Christopher Priest after reading this. I recently read some science fiction, sort of hard science fiction, I would say, and I don't know, it kind of put me out of it. I read Ringworld by Larry Niven, and maybe I just wasn't feeling it, but it really, I don't know. I don't know. I just couldn't get into it. I couldn't really. I just didn't get it, you know. Yeah, going back to the sort of trauma, the paranoia. I really liked how Christopher Priest did this. The way the sort of perspective change as well. It sort of really puts a different sort of spin on things, a different look at the what's going on in the world, what's happening. And I think setting it so close to home in Great Britain in the 1980s, it sort of really sets the tone, sets it as a bit of a real life situation that would happen. Giving it that hit of realism made these sort of situations and relationship, sort of a love triangle, I would say, hit a lot more. If I was an alien, I don't think Great Britain in 1980s would affect me as much, you know. I'd be like, where the fuck is Wales? Okay, it's really hard to kind of review this without spoiling a lot of it, but I think the ideas of having an ambiguous feeling to the whole story of whether or not it's actually real, whether or not what we're hearing is like something that's been said by a character, has been made up in their mind, or has been reproduced, sort of fitting in different memories to create one linear story. I really liked that idea. I think something that I've grown to know about my sort of reading is that I like things about the inner self. I'd read previously Doris Lessing's a briefing. What is it called? Let me get it from my bookshelf. Doris Lessing's Briefing for a Descent into Hell, and that's all about sort of a therapist. I would really like to sort of do a deep dive into this one. Doris Lessing puts this sort of genre as inner space fiction, I think she says in this, and I really like the description. It's obviously just science fiction. It is like science-based fiction and how the mind works and how that can alter certain ideas and certain thoughts, and how like your mind can really play tricks on you. That is like something we are unsure about, like how that works, how sort of your brain works. I'm sure there are certain like understandings, but really like the mind is a massive, still a massive like problem, and like debated to this day. Very philosophical, and that's something that I really like in books, and I'm going to love more in books, and probably will search it out more for. Going to spoilers now. Wee woo, spoiler time, people. So the Glamour itself. What is the Glamour? The reveal, that the initial idea of it being invisibility, I wasn't really, digging it to begin with. I don't know, it felt a little bit forced in. I think for me, while I was reading before the reveal, I thought that maybe the Glamour is just some form of thing pulling people together it's something that will keep people together, even though, you know, what they're dealing with in that relationship or in that situation is like toxic and bad. There's something that still holds them together. And I guess invisibility is, you know, a way to explain that, and that, you know, whenever, even if they're not there, they are still there within your mind. Like, they're over your shoulder thinking about, like, or, well, not even thinking, but like, you're thinking about them even if they're not there. It's a very, like, scary thing to deal with. And if that is real, you know, if, well, you think they aren't there but they are actually there, is pretty terrifying, you know. And I wouldn't want to be haunted, okay? I would not want to be haunted by a ghost that, you know, does certain shit in this book. God blimey. Really subtle things of like slight compressions in pillows, and like putting soap on people's heads. That's a bit weird. There's a lot of good things, and I really grew to love the idea of it being invisibility. And then the sort of another reveal of what the invisibility is, you know, is actually it's almost like a hypnosis, in that the people that are invisible are actually hypnotizing the people around them into sort of believing they're not there. In their subconscious mind, they are there, but like in their perception of life and reality, they aren't there. So like people would be moving around them to move around them subconsciously, but in reality they just don't acknowledge they're there. And I think that's a great idea. That's much more, in my opinion, a better idea than just straight up invisibility, because I think for me it's more interesting. I want to hypnotize people. The ending, it was a tough book to end. And I think the ending was a good ending. It wasn't an amazing ending. It felt kind of like a cop out. I'm sorry to say. That was my opinion. And I think Doris Lessing's one book is almost, it just finishes. It's like, it's over. Bye. This one felt rather, it came up with an answer, but the idea of that Nile, and I think it's Nile with two L's, is really just a puppet for like a god almost. And I think, you know, it's a writer, like the analogy is a writer. What people do with characters in writing and in film, and, you know, just fictitious ideas, what people do with those, it's rather perverse. It's quite sad, you know, the things that some people put them through. And with this, the Glamour, you know, there's some tough stuff that they put them through. And I think that all sort of comes back, and he puts sort of a mirror up to that idea of a writer being able to manipulate people in their books, doing whatever they want, and just sort of exploring that idea. You're in a film. It's like pointing. I'm never a big fan of breaking the third wall. But the thing is, I do it, so who am I to fucking judge? Yeah, I think if it's done too obviously, done too suddenly, I think it can be a bit too on the nose. You know, Deadpool being a bit way too on the nose, you know, with certain things like that, and it just ruins it a bit for me. Oh, the new Scream. I don't think, well, Bloody hell, there's another Scream that's just happened. The Scream before the reboot, the reboot of Scream, that was fucking so self-conscious. Is that a self-conscious? I would like to sort of do maybe a deep dive into inner space fiction. In the end, I would give the Glamour 4 stars. Thanks for watching the Rhys is Writing channel. Please hit subscribe. There'll be a lot more videos to come. Thanks for watching the Rhys is Writing YouTube channel. Thanks for sticking around to the end. You rock. And I'll see you later. Bye.